All right, all you YouTube subs, I thought I would do an update here. I'm going to do it on both Bitcoin and Ethereum. So since we had such a big washout over the weekend here and counts got obliterated and the whole thing changes up, that's the reality of trading. So we're going to dig into that here in great detail and reevaluate and see what the market is implying is next. Now, before we get into that, just a reminder here, this is the last day of this little 420 promo that we're doing. So we're 15 off the monthly, 23, 25 off the 6 month. So if you're interested in that, again, we are keeping this through midnight tonight on 420. So if you're partaking later in the day, don't forget, right? So you can always find this over on our Twitter feed. Just find us at Trade Devils. So if you ever forget those, right? You do want to do them all in caps, just as we have it listed here. So just a reminder, last day, we'll run that through midnight. We got a lot of people taking advantage of that. We don't do these that often. So if you're on the fence, this might be a way to stair step into it and save yourself a little dough on the way in. Okay, with that said, let's get back over to an update on both Bitcoin and Ethereum. All right, all you devils out there, here we are on Tuesday the 20th here. I'm going to do just a quick update on Bitcoin and Ethereum. And then as it's Tuesday, where we look at traditionals, members, I'll circle back here and we'll look at the trads that you've got up. But I wanted to do this for our YouTube subs since we had such a big sell-off. And the entire count has now been washed away by one large wave. So this is where we left it on Friday. In fact, we were, in an hourly, bring this down a little bit. So we were, I was trumpeting about the trade opportunity right there on the idea that this could have been a 1-2. We're sitting right at the 50. We had structure. Well, hopefully, those of you that were watching that video and heard me talk about the opportunity to get long here off of a 3 coming in, while we didn't have a great start to this here, there were 2 things that I really wanted to emphasize. One was when you get a move that's far, where you've gone that far from your entry, in the context of respecting the risk of the market, that's a perfect opportunity to just move your stop to either at your entry or just below. So essentially, you get a free trade. And this is just part of respecting the risk of what the market can do, right? I mean, nobody saw that coming. You had a perfectly technical pivot here, so with good money management, this should have been a scratch or a very small loser, right? So, it's a funny thing, right? So people, will often say, okay, well, is it a good trade or a bad trade, smart trade or a dumb trade? Well, this was a technically very valid and significant trade. So we had a very technical entry here, as we went through in great detail on Friday. So the idea that because it was a scratch or perhaps a small loser makes it a bad trade is not the way to think of it, right? The idea is to build the muscle memory so that when you see that opportunity set up, you're not thinking about, oh God, well, I remember the last time I did that in Bitcoin, but that you pull the trigger reflexively here, but that you're very quick to understand, well, okay, I got to respect the risk, because, particularly on a Friday going into a weekend, which often when that shit happens. It's just having a healthy respect for how quickly the market can take back. As you'll often hear me say, it gives reluctantly, it takes aggressively. So I'm very hopeful that those of you that were watching that video had tightened up your stop at the very least. I did emphasize it pretty strongly here that was the right way to take that, and that what we were likely going to bump into was the algo from the other side, right? So we got through that one. We got through just a notch on that one, but we had run into the 50 here from the top, right? So it was one or the other, right, was going to win it. We never know which one. Now the trend was higher, right? So we had a series of higher highs. We had an impulsive move. The idea was potentially it's corrective. We always know there's going to be an algo on the other side, so it's always, we're in a little bit of a fib fight there to see which side was going to win it, and then you can deduce what happened there. There several theories here. I forwarded a scenario here that seemed pretty reasonable on or I should say retweeted on our Twitter feed here. This would be an interesting read from Willy Woo. Really gives you some insight into what's happening on a kind of behind the scenes beyond the TA, just what's happening with some of the fundamentals and some of the technicals related to Bitcoin. So that would be well worth a read if you haven't read it already. Now, so as I come, let's get back here. So now as we look at this, what happens, and this is Sure, it's frustrating, right? Perhaps you were up a little bit and you're out at a scratch, right? So you had a winner, but hopefully it doesn't turn into a loser. And again, if it was, it would be a very small one. So what does that do to the entire account? Well, of course, that completely changes everything. So interestingly, and this is just the reality of Elliott Wave and technical analysis. I mean, things happen fast and counts change all the time. You have to accept that, right? That's just the reality of trading, right? Things change, counts change all the time, and it can't. You've got to understand that, and rather than go, oh well, shit, this Elliott Wave stuff doesn't work. It's not about work, not work. It's about organizing the data as it's happening. So at this moment in time, as we see the technical retrace here, and note, well, interestingly, note where we do. From the dominant to the dominant, we go right to the golden zone. Just as we had done here, we get a little front run on the golden zone. Remember, the algorithm does not see this, right? The algorithm does not see, oh, I got alternating swings here. Once the thing starts down, the only thing the algorithm is seeing is that. Right? That doesn't matter, right? Swing low, swing high, golden zone, reaction, right? Now, again, just as we were talking about here at a smaller degree, excuse me, there is nothing that says that must hold. I mean, certainly that could break. It doesn't surprise me that it held, right? At least on the first test. So we know we have here the potential for this to be a significant pivot. It's certainly technical. Right, we get a little high volume note here, front run on the golden zone. So we have a technical pivot. But this count, the idea that we had 3, 4, and some sort of 1, 2, 1, 2, now completely blown up. So, sure, that's frustrating, right? Because this would have been nice if we were just going to carry on here. We're going to have a swing, retrace, and we're going to keep going. As I said, there were certainly some red flags. We had the weekly MACD crossover, which I emphasized repeatedly. We had just the reality of a lot of retail coming in and thinking, wow, this is the easiest money I've ever made in my life. The Coinbase IPO, all those things that are typically, those are red flags, right? So when it looks like it's easy money, you can almost be guaranteed that the market's going to do something to remind you that there is no easy money in the market. Sure, there's going to be some great rides, people that are in Doge or GameStop or those kind of things. Sure, there are those kind of home run balls. That's a bit, damn near like buying a lottery ticket, right? Some of them are going to hit, and that's fantastic, right? For those that have participated in that and made some money there, good for you, right? I'm glad you did. As we kind of circle back to just the reality of day-to-day trading, and as markets move and counts change, and we just deal with it. You got to look at it and say, okay, well, what it appeared was happening, right? The market has revealed more for whatever reason. The reason doesn't matter. Right now, as we look at this, the market is telling me a different story. Okay, well, can I use Elliott Wave here to help me identify, well, what's likely happened and what would that imply with regards to the market's next direction? So with all of this blown up, and interestingly, the two things that we were looking at were the idea that we had a triangle, and then my count, the more bullish being 1, 2, 1, 2. Both of those completely blown up, right, with just that one free fall. So those two counts are eliminated. Now, that's not, again, it's not necessarily a bad thing. What we're doing is reducing and eliminating possibilities here. So, those can't be happening now. So what could be happening? Well, we got to step back on this. And despite all the work that went into all this subdivision here, it's completely blown up. Right? So you just start from a blank chart. So that said, I just wanted to circle back here. Now, I can't say that I love the count that we end up with, but I think we have to recognize a few things in terms of identifying what we have here in terms of what the most likely way to count this from an Elliott Wave perspective, but also just recognizing some of the things that were a bit of a concern with the prior count. If I can go back to it. Where did I have it? Here it is. Right. So one of the things that we were concerned about, in addition to the MACD crossing over, was that this 4 was a bit suspect because the length of time relative to the 2 was too short, right? That was my concern with it. It kept me a little bit ill at ease, but as long as we were trading technically here, I was willing to go with, well, okay, I got a swing, I got an internal retracement, I got a higher high, I got a retrace. So that's why I was leaning into that. Remember, it's always, what did the algo do last? Right, that's where we start. Is there geometry, and then is there an Elliott count to support what we see? And at this point in time, I think we've just got to change everything. Like, so all of this is now just blown up. Even though we get a technical pivot here, if this is 3-4, well, it's not probable here that we would have 1-2, right? One at this. I mean, you know, shit. Is it possible? Yeah, this still could be 1-2, right? We haven't taken out that low, but it's much less likely. So backing up to look at the whole thing, that's where we have to come back and say, okay, let's see if we can reconcile this. So we had been considering the 4 up here and problematic. So I think when you step back to the chart, oh, here, let's take that off. And look and say, okay, well, if that wasn't going to be 1-2, 1-2. Well, first, what is most likely going on here? Well, this looks like at this point in time, we've got an extension in the 1, and we end up with a contracting diagonal, an ending diagonal to finish something. So we can look at this and say, well, if I back up and say, all right, well, this, we had considered this an internal 3-4, so we were still seeking higher levels here, because I think we had counted it this way. I think we were going 1, 2, 3, 4, right? We were looking at that. Well, now I think you got to step back and say, all right, well, this was kind of problematic anyway. If this still holds as the best 1, 2, we can certainly count an impulse here. This is a 4 of something, right? We know that's incredibly 4-like. Well, if this becomes the 4 here, and we've just completed something here, it's not unreasonable to think, note, I'm still in log scale, to think, okay, well, if that's the, if this is a completed, if we complete with an ending diagonal, let me say it that way, right? We look here. Okay, so how do we look here for the 3? Well, 1, 2, 7, 2, right, to the tick. Second most common. So I'm comfortable with that. Again, this being so 4-like. All right, well, if that's the 4, right, we put this right here. Well, we're kind of in between, right? So you're taking the length of the 1, projecting from the proposed low of the 4, although I think it's actually this one right here. It's not to the tick, but you know, this is not an uncommon location if we're gonna stall here and complete this impulse. So that it's very reasonable to think that we have now at this point completed the impulse here of the 3rd. Now you got to back up to say, okay, wait a minute, which 3rd? Well, let's not forget the 1, 2, right? That led into the low of the COVID pivot down here. So as I look at this now, stepping all the way back, I can certainly complete the 3rd right here. Again, measuring from the low. All right, well, how do I look up here? I get it right on that pivot. We're kind of in between, right? It makes me suspect of that as a hard pivot, but based on the Elliott count here, I don't see another way to count it. And I've been back and forth with my team. None of us see an alternate here that's as probable as this as an ending diagonal. And we had members, there's several people that were looking for that. So good for you guys if you caught that. I don't know that you would have sold it, but perhaps you were more cautious on any bullish optimism here, given the environment, the MACD crossing on the weekly, some of the things that we talked about last week. So if you were spared that big drop, well, good for you. So now as we sit here looking at this, well, okay, if this is going to hold as a top, we'd be anticipating a more significant correction, right? We'd be thinking for something like that. Now, the wild card is, you know, if we zoom in there, let's go down to a 2-hour. I think because this is a 3, so we look at this and we go, okay, well, it turns out to be a 3. This is an awfully big extension relative to this. So, you know, we get the technical pivot here. So is there an alternate here? Well, right now this would still be my primary, that we completed something here because it's an ending diagonal. Now it's tempting to think, oh, well, couldn't that be just the 1, 2 of the 1 of the 3rd at a higher degree? Well, it's possible, right? Of course, anything's possible. But because it's a contracting diagonal, it's more likely ending rather than starting something, right? That's the again, it's not definitive, right? There is no certainty in the market, but it's more probable that we're ending rather than starting something here. So as we come down to this pivot, okay, right. So this is our emphasis point. We have a technical pivot here. Now, if this blows up here off of that, go get target, 1, 2, 3 targets. Well, we'll be back here, revisit this. Maybe there's another way to look at it. But right now, it looks like what we need to do is complete a deeper correction. So that would be, at the very least, we'd be looking for something like that. So let me get the inside one off of this. Come back down here to the prior 3-4, right? Could we go that low? Come down here between the 50 and the 618. Well, it wouldn't surprise me. It's just about probabilities here. So let's zoom in on that on the hourly and see what this looks like. So the massive wick down here, essentially what we get is a double bottom. It's not quite to the tick, but we come down, we test this, and it holds. All right, so far that looks like it's going to hold. Right, likely has to be challenged again. So here's the pivot. What do we get in there? Do we have a clean anything? Some of the problem with a wick like that is it's so quickly rejected that it can throw off your count. So I'm inclined to go to a line chart and say, okay, well, it looks like I could probably complete some sort of an ABC. And as you'll note here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? If we're using a line chart of the closes, we eliminate that giant wick and we get a clear 5. And this does look like we could go kind of looks like a 5 as well. So it's a little bit of a squeeze in here. But it looks more like the emphasis point being this 5, right? So something likely completes here. Now, what are we doing here? Now, this could be the 3 working on we could wish that we could still be in the 4, right? We could be doing something like this. We go into a 4 and then we've got another leg down. So right now, as it sits, I don't like the Elliott count enough. If I put this back to candles here, the implication would be that this was, even if you use this as the 3, that this was truncated. Right, which you don't say, you go to a truncation only kind of as a last resort. So now we're sitting here kind of just chopping sideways. So I don't see enough here to warrant a new trade, right? So certainly the possibility here is that this is A, B, C, and we're going into the 4, right? That's possible. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 into a 1, shallow 2, here's the free fall, it's just the waterfall. Okay, could be, right? We're starting on the 5th. That's a 3, so it looks like right now that's corrective of this move. So it looks like whatever's going on here, this is the 3 that corrects it. So we could be going higher. I don't see anything here that gives me enough conviction to say, okay, well, even though I had a technical pivot here because I'm coming off of a golden zone, that I like this enough to chase it. I don't, right? And again, I'm an Uber bull, so I'm always looking for opportunity. So you might be surprised that I'm down here saying, hey, we got a golden zone, fuck, let's buy it. If I can't get clarity on the count, then I'm reluctant to add to any positions, right? So, I try and make that distinction between trading Bitcoin and holding Bitcoin. So I was in that trade, right? I got stopped out. With a little slippage, was actually a small loser. So here, per your trading Bitcoin or trading dollars, probably wouldn't probably place it that way if you're buying Bitcoin. For your trading dollars here to look at a re-entering long or short, I just don't see enough clarity to say, okay, I want to get into the market right now. I mean, even if we're sitting right here, what am I doing? I'm just sitting right at the POC, right? As I sit, well, if we move it a little bit. I don't know where I am here. I don't like this enough. And if I step back to the longer term count, I don't love this ending diag, but there it is right in front of me. So whether I like it or not is really irrelevant. That's what the market is showing right now, that we completed. There's the 3, deal with it. Well, nothing says you have to be in the market at all times, right? So this to me is unclear. I can see the ending diagonal. I got it, right? I can follow along there. But again, if it's going to be a leading diagonal, even if I just take the diagonal, I'd be expecting something to come down lower, right? Something to come down here. Look, I've got a nice low volume divot here, a big wall of support that's all tied to this, right? So we can see where the support is. I'd kind of like to see that get tested. Oh shit, I can't do it with it. I'd like to see that get tested and see how we hold up there. Is this going to sustain as an ending diagonal? Well, if it is, then we're looking for the 4, certainly lower. So I'd be anticipating something along these lines to come down and look for that 4. Now we're coming down, we're challenging the mid to low 30s. Just this alone, right? This area right, so you can look at it and say, okay, if we come down here, who's going to defend here? Right, well, we know all the longs that bought there are going to defend right here. We can do it this way. They're going to defend right here. Doesn't mean they can't get through, but you can anticipate that there will, at the very least, if, right, heavy emphasis, if it comes down here, there's going to be a reaction there. Doesn't mean that we couldn't fall through it, but you can anticipate a reaction there. So I'm looking at this going, show me. Show me what you're going to do, right? It's, again, I often use this analogy. The market has to reveal more. Are you done here? If you are done, then I'm anticipating a much bigger correction. I mean, that's 15, 20K down. So I don't like this enough to buy it, right? Because this implies something that's ending. Even though that's a technical pivot, the Elliott count doesn't make enough sense for me to say, okay, I'm ready to be a buyer here. Again, if we take off from this, I'll reevaluate, right? So maybe, right? So you can kind of look at it and say, well, possibly, right? Because it's a 3, I've got to do this. Get that out of there, right? Maybe I end up with something like this. A, B, C into my 3. Maybe, all right? It's possible. We're going up and we're not done yet. Right, we go up and we get the 5 here. Then we're back to, oh, okay, again, where's the 4? Still struggling with that same idea on the 4. Right? Now we back here making this the 4. It's unclear. So when in doubt, I'll tell any member, any trader, any YouTube sub, when in doubt, stay the hell out. Do not feel like you need to, don't let FOMO, oh God, I got to get back in. I got stopped out there, but I got to get back in. Wait until you can see it. Right now, yeah, I see the diag, but I don't particularly like it. Not enough to trade it. Now, if we go up here and get that, well, now, okay, well, maybe I can end up, well, so even here, right? So even if that were the 3, I still would more likely have an ending diagonal because the 1 is the longest, right? 3 would be shorter, 5, right? We'd have to pay attention to that to see if 5 would be shorter than 3 to stay with the ending diagonal, 5 being shorter than 3, 3 being shorter than 1. Too unclear for me. Now, if we got something like this, all right, and it's going to hold as the diag, and this is the 5, and this is the 4, and we're going to come down here, I'd be more interested. Right now, I think you just got to hold. All right, I went way too long there. Okay, so let's, but I just wanted to reemphasize that don't feel like you need to be in the market at all times, right? Trading Bitcoin is okay to sit on the sidelines here. That's where I am. I'm not putting anything on until I get more clarity on what we're doing. Okay, all right, so, let's look at ETH real quick. Oh, shit, now I got to find it. I thought I had it over here. Oh, shit. Oh, here it is. Okay, let's get up to ETH, because ETH is a little bit different. Come here. Okay, so ETH, we did not blow up the count here. So the idea being that that's the 3. Let's go up a degree. So coming off of the 4 here, which is, we have similar challenge here, but the 4 is kind of short in time. But coming off of this, I've got 1, 2. I get my corner. Oh shit, that was golden. I think it was. All right. I get my golden corner. Right. So here's the golden corner. Here's where we get target. Right. So here's your 80% being realized. We get back and get through. All right. So that's all been realized. Now we've come down here to the sliding parallel here. I think that's the 25. So we get a little throw over here, and we've got the same problem here. We get this long wick, but note we don't overlap the 1. So the 1, 2 impulsive 3 to hold here comes down, doesn't overlap. So if you just kind of draw that up and say, okay, well, where would I anticipate that I might find the support? Well, boy, we dab a toe in, test it from above, nice reaction. Now, if you go down to that, it's a little suspect, right? You'd have to do the same thing, right? So you'd have to come over here to the line chart and go, okay, A, B, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, could be done. 1, 2. Okay, well then this is going to really need to kick. Right now, I'm just sitting in a box, right? I'm just going sideways. So we put that back on. to candles, sure, doesn't look impulsive, right? At the very least, we could say that. So if this is going to hold as a 1 very deep 2, which is iffy, right? So again, that's going to need to really kick. The same thing here. I don't love this enough to be a buyer, because what are we running into, right? So even if I use the low here, we're at the 50. If I use the 2 that were tested and just allow for this, it's just a liquidation wick, just like Bitcoin, right? That's all that's happening, right? People are getting liquidated. So now we've tested. So I know I've got some support down here. Not good enough, right? So I don't like this enough to say, oh, okay, now get through that and give me a retrace. Okay, now I'm back on track. All right. Oh, okay, now I got a 1, perhaps a 2, and now it makes more sense. Right now, it looks to me like we're just rebuilding a base here. So everybody gets freaked out. Weak longs get liquidated. I put myself in that category, right? We are all as if we are not a bank, hedge fund, or an institution, we are weak longs. So if you were in that, right, you got wicked out here. Off of the same idea that we were coming down here, we hit some structure, ABC, we're going up, right? That crazy wick comes down, liquidation. Now we're stalling. Now are we rebuilding a base? Is this accumulation? Well, I'm going to need to see that move a little higher, because this, right? You're kind of, is that the 4? Is that the 4? Not sure. If I'm not sure, I don't enter the market. If I can't see it, right? And seeing it is different than realizing it, right? But I want to see a path that makes sense to me. I mean, there's a lot here that makes sense. I understand why we come down, we hold the structure here. I can look at the Elliott count. Oh, we don't blow out the 1, but that doesn't look like we're starting on an impulse. It looks like we're just dealing with, we're kind of, reabsorbing new information. Okay, right? Was this just a retrace here that gives us an opportunity and we can carry on with the trend, or is something more significant going on? Well, of course, if Bitcoin drops again, which is certainly a possibility, you can anticipate that Ethereum likely goes with it. Now, do we want to break the 1, go lower, right? We don't know, but that's not good enough. I don't think here that's good enough to trade. Partly because if you're trading it here, okay, where's your stop? So if you want to be a buyer here, oh, okay, 1, 2, we tested, it held, let's be a buyer. Okay, your stop here, here, right? That's a little too much for me, right? That's, you just to go up here and get the median line, I don't even have 3 to 1 yet, right? Now I got to get up here and get that. Now I'm at 3 to 1. Okay, well now this starts to look better. Okay, I'm going up for my 5, but that's not a good enough start for me. I got to get a little bit more conviction into a 1 and give me a retrace. Maybe I'm testing this from above now. Oh, okay, now it starts to make sense. I know where I am. We're going up. We're still going up to complete something. If that's a 4, well, right, we better hope that that's not the 5, right? This is the large 4, that's not the 5, right? We would want this to be the 1 of the 5, right, for uber bulls. If that's the 1 of the 5, well, we're going, right? There's some big numbers still yet to come. So you can't make assumptions, right? That's just going to keep going. Again, easy money. Look how people are becoming millionaires in Doge, buying it at 0.002 cents and then taking it up to 48 cents. They're becoming billionaires and millionaires. I say this, with all due respect to anyone who's trading right now. There is no fucking easy money in the market. This is the hardest way to make money anywhere. So you have to respect the risk. Now, I've been doing this for so long that I have an awareness of how quickly the market can take, because it has taken from me many times, right? So I'm always acutely aware of how quickly it can take from you. So if nothing else, just having gone through this weekend, if you're a new member, if you're a new trader, respect how quickly it can pick your pockets. I mean, there were, I heard some horror stories, right, of people getting liquidated there. Just massive losses off of that Bitcoin drop. Massive. There is no easy money. You got to respect the risk. You got to be really mindful of how quickly it can take from you here. So looking at this, with that in mind, I wouldn't buy that because I'm too far from my stop. When it was down here, looks a lot better, right? Because then I got a very small distance to my stop. All right, but I think if we carry on here, there's no reason to change your bullish bias here of heading up towards new highs here, right? I think that's still very much intact. So just because I'm cautious here, I'm just saying, give me more clarity, right? Show me something impulsive to come off of this, because I got a long way to go here, right? If I'm going up towards 3,200 or higher, this is maybe it's 1-2, but I'm sure looking for a good 3. All right, guys, I'm gonna stop there because members, this is a traditionals day, but I wanted to do an update here since this, all the counts. Well, certainly with Bitcoin, the counts got blown up and we had to recalibrate. So with that, I'll pause here. We'll post this up on YouTube for subs as well, and then members, I'll be back here because I'll look at we've got about 7 or 8. It looks like a good participation today. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Looks like quite a few of you are looking for some comments and some analysis and maybe some education on the traditionals that you posted up. Okay, so with that, members, I'll split this into 2 videos. If you're on YouTube, don't forget you've got this little discount here that we're running. Where he's over on our Twitter feed. So if you're unsure, if you forget what these are, it's right off our Twitter feed. So this is running through the end of the day, right? 4:20. All right, so if you're participating in 420, don't forget to take advantage here. Okay, guys, I'll talk to you later.